I never thought my own flesh and blood would look at me that way. My daughter Caroline staring at me with those cold eyes, like I was something that didn't belong in her pristine corner office on the 47th floor of what used to be my building. "This business isn't for people like you," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "People like me." I let those words sink in as I looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Manhattan skyline I once ruled. I built Winston Enterprises from nothing, with these calloused hands that Caroline was now too embarrassed to shake in front of her board members. But let me take you back, because this story didn't start in that sterile office with its minimalist furniture and the faint smell of designer perfume. It started 3 years ago when I decided to step back from the company I built over 4 decades. I was 67, tired from a lifetime of 80-hour weeks, and after my wife Margaret passed away, the hunger that drove me all those years seemed to fade. Caroline had been working in the company since she graduated from Wharton, shadowing me for years. She was brilliant, shrewd, articulate, with an instinct for business that reminded me of myself in my younger days. When she presented her vision for taking Winston Enterprises into the digital age, I was impressed. So I made a decision that felt right at the time. I would retire, naming Caroline as CEO while maintaining majority ownership and a seat on the board. "Dad, you've earned your rest," she told me, her hand on my shoulder at my retirement party. "I'll make you proud." For the first year, I embraced retirement. I bought a small fishing cabin in Montana, took up woodworking, and even started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinner with Martha, a kind widow I met in my bereavement group. I checked in with Caroline occasionally, and everything seemed fine. Winston Enterprises was growing, expanding into new markets. Caroline was being featured in business magazines as a visionary leader. Then my old friend Robert called. Robert had been my CFO for 25 years, before retiring 2 years before me. "Jack, something isn't right at Winston," he said, his voice low, like he was afraid of being overheard. "I still have friends there. They're saying Caroline is making moves, preparing to take the company public." "That can't be right," I said immediately. "That would dilute my ownership. She knows that's never what I wanted." "There's more," Robert continued. "There's talk about a major acquisition. Meridian Tech. It's a billion-dollar deal." Meridian Tech was our biggest competitor. I'd been fighting them off for years, refusing acquisition offers from their founder, the shark-like Victor Mercer. The companies had opposite philosophies. We built quality products with American labor at fair wages. Meridian outsourced everything and treated employees like disposable parts. "She wouldn't," I said, but doubt had already taken root. I flew back to New York the next day. My penthouse felt strange, like staying in a hotel room. Caroline hadn't returned my calls, so I went directly to the office. The security guard at the front desk, a new face, stopped me. "I'm Jack Winston," I said. "The founder." He looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I'll need to call upstairs. You're not on today's visitor list." Visitor list? In my own damn building. I waited 20 minutes before being escorted upstairs, noticing how many unfamiliar faces filled the halls. The Winston Enterprises logo had been redesigned, something sleeker and more angular. My old office, with its view of Central Park and the mahogany desk I'd had for 30 years, was now occupied by someone named Trevor, according to the nameplate. Caroline's assistant, a young man with careful eyes, led me to a conference room instead of her office. I waited another 30 minutes before she appeared, flanked by 2 people I didn't recognize, a man with slicked back hair and a woman in a severe pantsuit. "Dad," she said, surprised but not exactly pleased. "You should have called first." "I did," I replied, 3 times. She glanced at her companions. "This is Trevor Hansen, our new COO, and Lisa Park from legal." I didn't care about the introductions. "What's this about Meridian Tech?" Caroline's smile tightened. "We're exploring strategic partnerships." "Don't use corporate speak with me, Caroline. I taught you what those words mean. Are you selling to Victor Mercer?" "We're not selling anything," she said. "We're acquiring Meridian in a reverse merger that will take the combined entity public." The blood drained from my face. A reverse merger. That was how you circumvented shareholders who might object, like me. It would effectively transfer control to Meridian while making it look like we had acquired them. That's not happening, I said firmly. I'm still majority owner. Caroline exchanged glances with the lawyer. Dad, perhaps we should discuss this privately. There are complications you might not be aware of. What complications? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Legal has discovered some irregularities in the company structure. The board is concerned about your retirement package and certain decisions made in your final years as CEO. We should discuss this with your personal attorney present. It was a threat, clear as day. My daughter was threatening me with some cooked-up investigation unless I went along with her plan. I want to see the Meridian deal paperwork, I demanded. Caroline hesitated, then nodded to the lawyer, who slid a thick document across the table. $900 million, it read at the top. When is this supposed to be signed? I asked. That's when it happened. That's when my daughter looked at me like I was nothing and said those words that would change everything between us forever. This business isn't for people like you, Caroline said, her voice cold and unfamiliar. The conference room fell silent. Even her sycophants looked uncomfortable, staring at their shoes or suddenly finding their phones fascinating. People like me, I repeated slowly. You mean the people who built this company? Who sacrificed everything so you could attend private schools and Ivy League universities? People who taught you everything you know about business? Caroline's face flushed, but she didn't back down. I mean people who don't understand where business is going. The future isn't sentimental, Dad. It's ruthlessly efficient. I stood up, my hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a fury I hadn't felt in decades. This meeting is over. As majority shareholder, I'm exercising my right to review all major transactions before they proceed. I turned to the lawyer. Ms. Park, I expect all relevant documents sent to my attorney by end of day. Actually, Mr. Winston, the lawyer began, her voice professional but with an edge of satisfaction, your status as majority shareholder is currently under review due to nothing, I interrupted. Send the documents, or I'll have my team file an emergency injunction blocking any transaction. I walked out without waiting for a response. In the elevator, alone at last, I leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. The Caroline I knew, the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I reviewed contracts, the teenager who debated business ethics with me over dinner, the young woman who insisted we establish a foundation to help underprivileged kids, seemed to have vanished. Back at my penthouse, I called my longtime attorney, Hal Jacobson. Jack, he said warmly, then paused. I've been meaning to call you. Don't tell me, I said. You've heard rumors. More than rumors. Caroline's legal team approached me last month, claiming they found irregularities in the company's books during your final years. Nothing criminal, they assured me, but enough to justify renegotiating your retirement terms. That's bullshit, Hal. You know it, I know it. They're trying to strong-arm me out of the way for this Meridian deal. Hal was silent for a moment. Look, Jack, I need to tell you something. I can't represent you in this matter. There's a conflict of interest. My stomach tightened. What conflict? Winston Enterprises is still my biggest client. Caroline renewed our firm's contract last year with the stipulation that I personally handle all their major transactions. I felt like I'd been punched. She bought you. It's not like that, Jack, but I do have to recuse myself. I can recommend several excellent attorneys who... I hung up. For a moment I just sat there, staring out at the city lights emerging as dusk fell. Then I made another call to the one person who would still tell me the truth. Eleanor, it's Jack Winston. I need your help. Eleanor Chen had been my executive assistant for 30 years before retiring the same month I did. She knew everything about Winston Enterprises, every file, every contact, every secret. She was at my penthouse within the hour. I've been waiting for this call, she said, removing her coat. I still have lunch with Judith from accounting every month. The things she tells me... She shook her head. Tell me everything, I said. Over takeout Chinese food, Eleanor laid it all out. Shortly after I stepped down, Caroline began pushing out my old executives one by one, replacing them with her own people. She cut the employee profit-sharing program I'd established. She moved manufacturing overseas after promising me she wouldn't. And most disturbing of all, she'd been quietly cultivating a relationship with Victor Mercer for over a year. Victor Mercer, I spat the name. Do you know what he said to me at an industry dinner 10 years ago? That my company would be his one day, that my quaint ethics were a business liability. Eleanor nodded grimly. There's more, Jack. 3 months ago, Caroline formed a separate holding company. She's been transferring Winston intellectual property to it. Patents, trademarks, proprietary processes. She can't do that. The board would never approve. The board has changed too. Didn't you notice at the last shareholders' meeting? I hadn't attended the last shareholders' meeting. I'd been in Montana, building a bookshelf for Martha. How bad is it? I asked. 7 out of 9 board members are her appointments now. The remaining 2 are afraid to speak up. I rubbed my temples. What about this review of my leadership they're threatening me with? Eleanor hesitated. That's where it gets ugly. They're looking at the Anderson acquisition from 5 years ago. The Anderson deal had been complicated. A small manufacturing firm with specialized technology we needed, but they were teetering on bankruptcy. To save jobs and secure the tech, I'd orchestrated a somewhat unorthodox arrangement. There was nothing illegal about that deal, I insisted. No, but there were financial maneuvers that, taken out of context, could look questionable. Caroline has hired forensic accountants to go through everything with a microscope. I paced the room, thinking. So that's the game. Threaten me with some manufactured scandal if I don't roll over for the Meridian deal. I stopped pacing. But why? Why this elaborate scheme? Eleanor's expression was sad. The reverse merger isn't just about taking the company public, Jack. According to Judith, once it's complete, Caroline gets a special class of shares that gives her permanent control. And a $50 million personal bonus. $50 million. I sank into a chair. She's selling out for $50 million. And power, Eleanor added. Victor Mercer has promised her the CEO position in the new company for at least 5 years. After that, he'll likely push her out too. I stared at the half-eaten food growing cold. She has to know that. Caroline's too smart to trust Victor. Maybe she thinks she can outmaneuver him, Eleanor suggested. She is your daughter, after all. That comment should have made me proud, but instead it just made the betrayal sting deeper. I need to see the books, I decided. The real books, not whatever sanitized version they're showing the board. Eleanor shook her head. They've locked down the systems. Your access was revoked months ago. I smiled for the first time that day. They revoked Jack Winston's access, but what about Richard Reynolds? Eleanor's eyes widened. Your emergency backup? You still remember that login? Richard Reynolds was a fictional executive we created years ago as a security measure. A ghost account with highest-level access that only Eleanor and I knew about. I remember everything about the company I built, I said, moving to my laptop. Let's see if they were thorough enough to find Richard. They weren't. Minutes later, I was accessing the company's most sensitive financial records. What I found made my blood boil. Not only was Caroline planning to essentially hand control to Meridian Tech, but the terms were terrible for Winston employees. Thousands would lose their jobs in the consolidation. Our factories in Ohio and Pennsylvania would be closed. The pension fund would be restructured, a euphemism for gutted. But that wasn't all. As I dug deeper, a different picture began to emerge, one that made me question everything I thought I knew about my daughter's motivations. Eleanor, I said slowly, look at these transfers to the Cayman Islands. They started 6 months ago. She leaned in, squinting at the screen. That's a lot of money. Where is it going? I followed the digital trail, my heart sinking with each discovery. This wasn't just about Caroline selling out for power and money. Something much darker was happening at the company I had built, with integrity at its core. Call Robert, I told Eleanor. Tell him to meet us tomorrow morning. And find me the best damn attorney in New York, someone with no connections to Winston Enterprises or Meridian Tech. What are you going to do? Eleanor asked, concern etching her features. I closed the laptop, my resolve hardening. I'm going to save my company, and maybe if it's not too late, I'm going to save my daughter. The next morning, I met Robert and Eleanor at the office of Patricia Winters, reportedly the most feared corporate attorney in Manhattan. Her corner office in a sleek midtown building offered a view of my company's headquarters, a visual reminder of what we were fighting for. So, Patricia said after I'd explained everything, your daughter is not only trying to push you out, but appears to be embezzling funds through a complex network of offshore accounts. She didn't sound shocked. 20 years fighting corporate battles had probably shown her worse betrayals than this. The evidence suggests it, I said. But there's something else bothering me. Caroline is ambitious, but she's not stupid. These transfers aren't well hidden, at least not from someone who knows where to look. It's almost like she wants to get caught, Robert suggested. Patricia spread the financial documents on her polished desk. Or like someone wants her to get caught. These transfers have 2 authorization signatures. Caroline's and Trevor Hansen, I read. The new COO. He was in the meeting yesterday. I did some digging on him, Eleanor said. Worked at Meridian Tech for 8 years before Caroline hired him, very close to Victor Mercer. The pieces suddenly clicked together. He's Mercer's plant, I said. Caroline thinks she's orchestrating this merger, but she's being played. Patricia nodded. A classic trap. They get her to commit financial improprieties. Then once the merger is complete and they don't need her anymore, they expose her, fire her, maybe even pursue criminal charges, Robert finished. She takes the fall. Victor gets what he always wanted, my company, and nobody looks too closely at the merger itself because they're distracted by the scandal. I stood up and walked to the window, looking at the Winston Enterprises logo shining in the morning sun. 42 years of work, integrity, and legacy. The thought of Victor Mercer dismantling it made me sick. But even worse was the realization that Caroline, for all her cold ambition, was walking into a trap. My daughter, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd comforted after nightmares, who I'd watched graduate with tears of pride in my eyes. Whatever she'd done, whatever she'd become, I couldn't stand by and watch her destroy herself. We need to move fast, Patricia said, checking her watch. According to your sources, the board meets to approve the merger at noon. We have 3 hours. I need to talk to Caroline, I insisted. Make her see what's happening. Patricia shook her head. With respect, Mr. Winston, your daughter has already shown she's not willing to listen to you. We need to go directly to the board with evidence of the financial irregularities. I can file for an emergency injunction. No, I said firmly. We're not exposing these transfers yet. That would just be playing into Mercer's hands. Caroline needs to be the one to stop this. And if she won't? Robert asked gently. I turned from the window. Then we go to the board, but I have to try first. 40 minutes later, I was back in the Winston Enterprises building. This time, I didn't announce myself at reception. I still had my key card. Apparently, they hadn't thought to deactivate it. I took the executive elevator directly to Caroline's floor. Her assistant jumped up when he saw me. Mr. Winston, you don't have an appointment. I don't need one, I said, walking past him toward Caroline's office. I found her alone, standing at the window much as I had been earlier, staring out at the city. For a moment, seeing her silhouette against the skyline, she looked so much like me that my anger faltered. Dad, she said without turning around. Security called up. You shouldn't be here. I know about the Cayman accounts, Caroline. That made her turn. Her face was pale, but her expression remained controlled. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The money you and Trevor have been moving offshore. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't have backups? Safeguards? She crossed her arms. If you're here to threaten me, I'm here to save you. My voice came out louder than I intended. I took a deep breath. Caroline, listen to me. Trevor works for Mercer. He has been from the start. This whole thing, the merger, the accounts, it's a setup. A flicker of doubt crossed her face before she masked it. That's absurd. Trevor is loyal to me. Is he? Then why did he set up the transfers to require both of your signatures? That's not protection, Caroline. That's making sure you're implicated. She moved to her desk, putting the solid oak barrier between us. You just can't accept that I'm running this company my way, that I'm taking it places you never could. Places like prison. I stepped closer, because that's where this ends for you. Once Mercer has what he wants, Trevor will expose the transfers, claim he was just following your orders, and you'll take the fall. The perfect scapegoat while Mercer picks apart everything we built. Caroline's composure cracked slightly. You have no proof of any of this. I printed these from the company servers an hour ago. I placed a folder on her desk. The complete transfer records, the corresponding board minutes where these transactions should have been disclosed but weren't, and communications between Trevor and an email address that traces back to Meridian Tech's servers. She didn't open the folder, but her hand rested on it. If what you're saying is true, it's already too late. The board meets in an hour. The vote is just a formality. It's not too late, I insisted. You can still call it off. I admit I made a massive mistake. Watch the stock price collapse, destroy my reputation. Better your reputation takes a hit than your freedom, I said. Caroline, this isn't about who runs the company anymore. This is about protecting you from Victor Mercer. He's using you to get what I never would give him. She was silent for a long moment, studying my face. Why would you try to help me after what I've done, after what I said to you? I moved around the desk until I was standing beside her. Because you're my daughter, because despite everything I love you, and because I know the real Caroline Winston is still in there somewhere, the one who used to talk about running this company with integrity, about taking care of our people. Her eyes glistened with sudden tears. I don't know if that Caroline exists anymore, Dad. I've done things. We all make mistakes, I said gently. The measure of a person is how they fix them. She opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. I watched her expression change from doubt to shock to cold anger. That son of a bitch, she whispered. Trevor's been blind copying Mercer on our internal strategy emails for months. She looked up at me. How did I not see this? Ambition can be blinding, I said. I know. I've been there. The intercom on her desk buzzed. Ms. Winston, the board members are gathering in the conference room. Caroline stood straighter, wiping away a tear that had escaped. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, Jacob. When the intercom clicked off, she turned to me. What do I do now? You tell the truth, I said. Not about the transfers. We'll deal with those quietly later. But about Meridian, about Mercer's true intentions. Show them the communications between Trevor and Meridian. The board will crucify me. Half of them are already in Mercer's pocket. Then we'll remove the board, I said simply. I still have allies among the major shareholders. Together we control enough votes to force a restructuring. She looked uncertain. You'd help me keep my position? After everything? What I want is for this company to be led with integrity by someone who values its people and its principles. If you're ready to be that leader again, then yes. She nodded slowly. I am, or at least, I want to be. Then let's go face the board together. The next hour was the most intense of my business career. Caroline walked into that boardroom like a warrior into battle, with me right behind her. She laid out everything: Mercer's manipulation, Trevor's betrayal, the true impact the merger would have on employees, and the company's founding principles. There were shouts, denials, threats of litigation. Trevor tried to paint Caroline as unstable, me as a senile old man unable to let go. But Caroline was magnificent. With every accusation, she countered with evidence. When Trevor denied the connection to Mercer, she projected his emails on the screen for all to see. When board members claimed the merger was still in the company's best interest, she broke down exactly how it would destroy everything unique about Winston Enterprises. In the end, the vote was 7-2 against the merger. Trevor stormed out, already on his phone, undoubtedly calling Mercer with the bad news. The aftermath wasn't easy. There were investigations, resignations, a painful period of restructuring. The offshore accounts were quietly closed, the money returned. We lost some board members and executives, but the company survived. Caroline and I spent long hours rebuilding not just the company, but our relationship. There were difficult conversations, tears, and eventually, forgiveness. She remained CEO, but we established new checks and balances. I returned to the board as Chairman Emeritus, a title I'd created specifically to give me oversight without undermining her authority. 6 months later, we sat together on the balcony of my penthouse, watching the sunset over the city. Winston Enterprises had just finalized a different kind of deal, a partnership with 3 smaller firms that shared our values, creating an alliance that would help all of us compete against giants like Meridian without sacrificing integrity. $900 million, Caroline said, sipping her wine. That's what the deal with Meridian would have been worth, on paper anyway. And what's this new alliance worth, I asked. She smiled, looking more like her mother than ever. Less in dollars, more in things that actually matter. Like what? Like knowing our employees in Ohio still have jobs. Like being able to look at myself in the mirror. Like sitting here with my dad, planning a future we both believe in. I raised my glass to hers, to things that actually matter. As the crystal clinked, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The company would face more challenges. Business always does. Caroline would make more mistakes. Leaders always do. But the foundation was solid again. The values were back in place. And most importantly, my daughter was looking at me not with disdain, but with the same respect and love I felt for her. Not as someone who didn't belong in her world, but as the person who had shown her what truly mattered in business and in life. Not the deals you close, but the integrity with which you close them. Some lessons take a lifetime to learn. Some nearly cost you everything before you understand their value. I was just thankful that for us, the lesson had come in time.